Imagine waking up to fake sirens blaring, orange cones turning your driveway into a crime scene, and a pearl-clutching woman screaming that you're trespassing on land your own father paid taxes on for 30 years. Yeah, that was my Tuesday in Oakwood Haven, the sleepy suburb where the HOA didn't just enforce rules, they invented new ones like it was their personal reality show. Get off this property immediately, Linda Whitaker barked, clipboard raised high like it was a golden scepter, her blazer buttoned so tight it looked painful. Behind her, 3 SUVs with those dollar store amber flashers rolled in like a budget SWAT team, and her volunteers, Derek the retired accountant and 2 other bored Karens in training, hopped out in reflective vests, unrolling yellow caution tape between my oak trees like they were securing a federal investigation. I stood there in yesterday's t-shirt, coffee mug still warm in my hand, and almost laughed. Almost. Because the deed in my back pocket said otherwise. Linda didn't know it yet, but she just declared war on the actual landowner, the guy who'd been quietly watching her little clipboard empire from afar while she collected facility management fees for buildings that weren't even hers. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice level, "you might want to check whose name is on the county records before you turn my driveway into your personal red carpet premiere." Linda's smile was all teeth and zero warmth, the same smile she used at HOA meetings when she'd fine residents for grass half an inch too tall. "This falls under community compliance jurisdiction, Mr. Whoever you are. Unauthorized occupation. We've had reports." She waved the clipboard like it was Exhibit A. Derek puffed out his chest and started dragging more cones across my gravel like he was directing airport traffic. One of the others popped the trunk and pulled out a folding table. A folding table. On my land. The moving truck I'd hired idled behind them, driver leaning out the window with wide eyes. "Buddy, I don't get paid for neighborhood civil wars." "Perfectly legal," I told him, still sipping coffee. "They just haven't read the fine print on reality yet." Linda marched closer, nostrils flaring. "Refusal to comply will be escalated. We take safety very seriously here in Oakwood Haven." I held up my phone, already recording. Good. Real authorities love bodycam footage. Especially when it shows grown adults playing dress-up cop with Office Depot props. Her eyes flicked to the camera for half a second, panic, then that fake calm again. "You'll regret this tone, sir." She snapped her fingers. Derek fumbled with a cheap handheld radio like it was a badge of honor. "Secure the perimeter. No unloading until clearance." The absurdity was chef's kiss. 2 middle-aged volunteers in neon vests started directing my moving truck like it was a parade float. The driver just stared. I stepped forward, calm as Sunday morning. "You're trespassing. Interfering with private property. Staging a circus on land that belongs to me." Linda pressed the clipboard to her chest like body armor. "A full compliance report will be issued within 48 hours. You'll wish you'd cooperated." She spun on her heel, barked orders, and the whole convoy peeled out in a cloud of gravel and wounded pride, amber lights flashing like they'd just busted a major drug ring instead of getting owned by a coffee mug. Silence settled. The truck driver shook his head. "Well, that was something." I exhaled, set the mug down, and stared at the pump house half hidden in the meadow at the back of my property, the same little shed my dad had leased to the HOA years ago for mailbox access and a token rent. Something told me Linda's empire had grown way beyond token. The next morning I walked the perimeter, dew soaking my boots, just to see what she was so desperate to protect. Halfway to the property line I spotted it. A shiny new chairwoman reserved parking sign screwed right into my boundary post. I laughed so hard a crow flew off. Who claims parking on land they don't own? Beyond the sign sat the pump house, now sporting a heavy-duty padlock that definitely wasn't there when Dad was alive. I tried the old key ring I'd found in his desk drawer. One slid in perfectly. The door creaked open like a bad horror movie. Inside, metal filing cabinet, box of the exact same radios Derek had been squawking into yesterday, rolls of yellow caution tape, and folders thick with county letterhead. I opened the top drawer. Lease agreements, old ones signed by my father, simple and fair. Then newer ones signed by Linda Whitaker herself. Thousands in facility management fees, patrol operations budget, emergency oversight costs, all auto-renewed and billed straight to the HOA dues. All of it charged against my land. My land. Static crackled behind me. One of the radios on the shelf blinked red. A voice hissed through, "He's inside the pump house. Documenting. Get eyes on him now." My stomach dropped, but I didn't run. I snapped photos of every page, stuffed the folders back, locked the door and walked out calm as ever. From the tree line I caught movement, someone ducking fast. Linda's little surveillance squad had been watching. Perfect. Let them watch. I'd been quiet long enough. By the time I reached the cabin, my neighbor Rebecca was waiting on the porch with fresh coffee. She'd been the HOA treasurer for 3 years and had been feeding me quiet hints for weeks. I showed her the photos. Her eyes narrowed. She's been running a full-blown protection racket on land she doesn't own. And the numbers, they don't add up. I leaned against the post, heart steady. For the first time since coming home, I wasn't just angry. I was ready. Word spreads faster than wildfire in a small suburb. By the next afternoon, half the neighborhood had gathered at the mailbox cluster, still sitting squarely on my property, under the flimsy tin roof like it was neutral ground. Someone had whispered security update, but everyone knew it was about the driveway circus. I decided to show up. Sometimes the best defense is walking straight into the lion's den wearing a polite smile. Linda stood center stage, clipboard clutched like a shield, Derek hovering behind her in his reflective vest like a budget bodyguard. "Neighbors," she began, voice dripping that practiced sweetness, "we've had reports of suspicious activity and non-compliance. It is our duty as the Oakwood Haven HOA to maintain standards and safety. Some individuals seem to think ownership exempts them from community rules." Her eyes slid to me. I leaned against the bench my dad had built decades ago and took a slow sip of coffee. Standards like fake badges and yellow tape? Or the $6,000 you funneled into radios and cones nobody voted on? A ripple of chuckles moved through the crowd. Rebecca stepped forward, folder in hand. "As treasurer, I've been reviewing expenses. $20,000 for compliance patrol equipment, another $15,000 for radios and facility fees that don't match any board approval." Murmurs turned into outright questions. An older guy in paint-stained overalls frowned. "Wait, what facility fees? We're paying extra for what exactly?" Linda's smile froze. "Operational necessities for community safety." I pulled out my phone and held up the pump house photos, radios, tape, lease documents, her signature on every inflated invoice. "Funny thing about those facilities, they sit on my land. County records prove it. And according to these, you've been collecting rent from the HOA to pay yourself." Silence hit like a slap. Then voices exploded. "We've been paying her to rent his land? That's $400 extra this year. Where'd it go? You told us it was insurance." Linda raised both hands. "This is being misrepresented. I have carried this community." Rebecca snapped the folder shut. "No, it's being exposed. You staged fake patrols with volunteers pretending to be law enforcement. That's not oversight. That's fraud, Linda." The word fraud landed like a gavel. Derek tugged at his vest and muttered, "I was just helping." Someone in the back shouted, "Helping who? We thought you were certified." Faces that used to nod politely at Linda now looked ready to riot. I let the anger simmer, then spoke quietly. "My dad always said authority is just theater. It only works if the audience keeps clapping." Looks like the clapping stopped. Linda's face went crimson. She spun on her heel, snapped at Derek, and the little convoy fled again. But this time the neighbors didn't disperse quietly. They stayed in clusters, whispering, comparing notes. Rebecca stood beside me. That was the beginning of the end. 2 days later I made the call. Deputy Mark Lewis picked up on the second ring, old friend of my dad's. "Got a situation, Deputy. Volunteers impersonating law enforcement, setting up checkpoints on private land, misusing HOA funds." He sighed the sigh of a man who'd seen too many clipboard queens. "I'll be there this afternoon." Sure enough, by 1:45 Derek's SUV bounced across the meadow, amber lights spinning, Folding table and cones deployed like a yard sale police state. Linda arrived last, hair helmet tight, sunglasses hiding panic. Secure the area. Begin compliance review. That's when the real sheriff's cruiser rolled in. Deputy Lewis stepped out, real badge, real gun, real authority that made the dollar store version look pathetic. Afternoon, folks. What's all this? Derek froze mid-clipboard. Compliance inspection, sir. He flashed his shiny tin badge. Lewis raised an eyebrow. Nice trinket. What agency issued that? Silence. Derek swallowed. The HOA board. Lewis's voice stayed calm but cut like a knife. Impersonating law enforcement on private property. That's a criminal offense, son. He turned to Linda. County maps confirm this land belongs to Mr. Brooks here. You're running an unauthorized checkpoint with equipment bought by dues nobody approved. Rebecca handed over the financial folder. Grant, neighbor with the golden retriever, lifted his phone. And I've got audio of Derek demanding ID and declaring HOA jurisdiction. Lewis held up a hand. I've seen enough. All equipment off this property in 24 hours. No more fake patrols. Next time I hear about intimidation, I'm filing charges. Linda's shoulders slumped for the first time. The Queen looked small. As the deputy drove off, Rebecca whispered, "That was the loudest silence I've ever heard." The amber lights shut off one by one. But I knew Linda wasn't finished. Bullies never are. The phone rang just after sunset. Unknown number. Something told me to answer and to hit record. Mr. Brooks. Linda's voice was tight at first, then syrupy. I know things got heated. The community is confused. They don't understand the sacrifices I've made keeping Oakwood Haven together. I leaned back, letting silence stretch. Together or under your thumb? She cracked. You don't know how much I've given, unpaid hours, unappreciated work. Sometimes I had to move money around, but it was always for the good of the neighborhood. I almost laughed. Funny because the good looked a lot like radios, cones, and a reserved parking sign on my fence. Her tone sharpened. You think this is funny? I've spoken to lawyers. Push me and you'll drown in paperwork. There she was, the real Linda. We can resolve this quietly. You drop the photos, Rebecca drops the financials. I step down after the next cycle. Everyone saves face. I sip cold coffee. You want me to help you save face after you stole from your neighbors and played cop on my land? That's rich. She switched to pleading. Please, Ryan, I have children, a mortgage. I never thought it would go this far. I lowered my voice. So you admit moving funds without approval? A pause. I had to. Nobody else would step up. And you admit ordering patrols without authorization? Another pause. Yes, but only because people only listen when you show authority. The recorder light blinked steady. Every word captured. Linda, you don't need me to crucify you. You just did it yourself on tape. Dead silence. Then a whisper. You'll regret this. Click. Rebecca walked in from the porch. That was her. I tapped the recorder. She just buried herself. Next morning we walked into the county courthouse with a banker's box of evidence and the recorder on top like a trophy. Assistant Diz Susan Holloway didn't waste time. After listening to the confession, she leaned back. Unauthorized appropriation, fraud, impersonation of law enforcement. This just crossed from neighborhood nonsense into criminal territory. Papers were served the same day. Linda looked ready to faint. The deputy told us later with a grin. Saturday brought the emergency HOA form at the mailbox cluster. Still on my land. Folding chairs, every household present. Linda stood pale but chin high, flanked by Derek like Secret Service. Don't let lies divide us. I've kept this community safe. Grant called out, safe? With fake badges and flashing lights nobody voted for. Rebecca stepped up. Over 6,000 drained without board approval. I move for immediate removal of Linda Whitaker as chairwoman pending full restitution and legal review. Hands shot up, nearly unanimous. Linda's voice cracked. You need me. Without my leadership this place will fall apart. Grant chuckled. Funny, it already fell apart with you steering. The applause started slow then roared. Linda spun, hissed at Derek and peeled out, gravel flying. But she couldn't leave without one last pathetic curtain call. 3 nights later her SUV screeched up to the pump house at midnight, amber lights flashing again. She slapped neon flyers on the door screaming I was stealing the community. Neighbors showed up, phones out, recorders rolling. You humiliated me, she screamed at me. No, I said quietly. You did that all by yourself. She looked around at the crowd of former loyal subjects now staring like she was a stranger. The fight drained out of her. She climbed back in and drove away for good. Next morning her house was empty, SUV gone, even the ridiculous chairwoman sign. The community meeting at the Grange Hall felt like a funeral for a dictatorship and a birthday party at the same time. Rebecca stood tall. Transparent budgets from now on. No more patrols, no more power trips. We look out for each other. Applause shook the rafters. When they asked about the pump house and mailboxes, I told them the truth. They're on my land. Dad rented them because he believed in community. We'll keep the agreement, fair on paper, no one pretending they're above the law. More applause. Over the next weeks the fake radios went into evidence lockers, cones got tossed, the HOA board shrank to people who actually wanted to organize barbecues instead of miniature police states. Neighbors who used to cross the street now shook my hand and admitted how long they'd been afraid to speak up. One evening on the porch with Rebecca and Grant, the dog snoring at our feet, stars blinking over the meadow, Grant grinned. You dethroned the HOA queen. Folks will tell this story for years. Rebecca chuckled. Just don't let anyone crown a new one. I raised my mug. Here's to that. The land finally felt like home again. Quiet, mine, and shared the right way. The queen was gone. The theater lights were off. And in the peaceful dark I realized something stronger than victory. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's just refusing to clap for the wrong show. So here's the question that keeps me up at night. And probably you now too. Was Linda Whitaker the real villain, or was the entire HOA system designed to create mini dictators like her? Did the quiet guy who exposed her go too far? Or was shining a light the only way to stop the darkness? Right or wrong, you tell me.